Anorexia nervosa is an eating disorder characterized by psychological symptoms, such as a drive for thinness, an aversion to food, and body dysmorphia, which ultimately lead to severely low body weight. However, in some cases, someone might present with the psychological symptoms of anorexia, but not meet the low body weight threshold to be diagnosed. When healthcare professionals are able to identify these cases, they are diagnosed as atypical anorexia. We need to understand better what causes this diverse range of manifestations of anorexia to be able to both treat the condition better as well as diagnose it early when treatment will be the most effective. What might come as a surprise is that anorexia, just like other psychological conditions, think of schizophrenia and major depressive disorder, is a highly heritable trait. This means that part of the reason why some people develop anorexia and others don't can be explained by genes in our DNA that we inherit from our parents. To pinpoint the exact spots in our DNA that explain this heritability, we can take tens of thousands of people who have anorexia and compare their DNA to tens of thousands of people who don't, which you can see depicted behind me. This allows us to identify the genetic component of anorexia, the red circle. One of the major findings from the latest study of this kind was that the genetic component of anorexia overlaps with the genetics for other traits. For example, it overlaps with the genetics that predispose people to have a lower body mass index, as well as a lower risk for type 2 diabetes. It also overlaps with the genetics that explain levels of leptin in our blood, which is our hunger hormone, as well as levels of high-density lipoprotein cholesterol. This finding is what sparked the idea for my project. What if I could take the genetic component of anorexia and separate it into two parts? A metabolic component, in pink, which explains anorexia as a disease of the body, and a psychiatric component, in yellow, which explains anorexia as a disease of the brain. Under this framework, someone who shares both genetic components is at high risk for developing a clinically diagnosable case of anorexia, whereas someone who only shares the psychiatric component but not this metabolic vulnerability is at high risk for developing a sub-threshold case of anorexia, which is much harder to diagnose. I was able to do this using novel statistical methods that have recently been published in the literature, and I now plan on applying these results to a Canadian population-based cohort to see how this genetic risk affects our development in early life, and to also see whether it's associated with specific psychological outcomes, which we can flag in children for early intervention. Thank you.